every major unit at the embassy was charged with going back to their own particular offices and devising a list of those, both Americans and particularly the Vietnamese staff and the Vietnamese out of the staff with whom we had worked, and therefore would presume to be compromised when and if the North took over. So we were preparing these very tedious evacuation lists by priorities of various kinds, by age, the number of years they'd worked with or for the U.S. government, the sensitivity of the work they had done, therefore their vulnerability, and so on. Turned those lists in, and then just before the roof totally caved in, we had another last-minute meeting at the embassy. My office compound was about 1.5 miles away from the embassy. So I went over there and we were summoned, and in the meeting we were asked to draw up evacuation lists. And I said, for heaven's sakes, that's what we've just spent days, nights doing, frantically. And the guy to whom we had handed them, I looked at him and I said, so where are the lists? He says, I don't know, they're all out of order, they're scrambled all over, we don't know. So we were ordered just very few days before the evacuation to go back and spend another long night putting together evacuation lists, which incidentally ultimately were useless. I mean, evacuations don't happen as ordered or by order. This one sure as hell didn't. But that was the story of the lists.
Additionally, Alan, if you don't mind, when you started with this project, you felt you had quite a bit of time. And then the time element collapsed on you, and all of a sudden your list had to get shorter.
Yeah, time was the collapse of time in Vietnam for many of us was just ongoing collapse. I got there in September of '74. The ruling theme at the embassy at that time was not that we were going to stay forever, but that we probably had another 2, maybe 3 years before the North would come on down and unify the country. So we were all working against what we assumed to be a cushion of time. Certainly nothing desperate. But by January, when the northern troops started to infiltrate along the northern border, what they found was is that the poorly led South Vietnamese forces collapsed after even the most minor attacks. And you could look at the map and they would probe at a certain point and boom, that point just fell in. They were surprised themselves, they being the North Vietnamese, so they immediately moved down the by now well-supplied and provisioned Ho Chi Minh Trail once again, and realized they were meeting no opposition that could stand up to them. And with almost the one exception on the film, one resistance point, it was just chaos. They just buckled. So time collapsed on all of us. Those of us who thought in September we'd be there a couple of years, by January we thought at the most a couple of years, and by March we thought maybe 3 or 4 months. We were talking June or July, but of course we pulled it up and left on the 29th of April.